What's going on, guys? I am Tim Kelly, joined today by Anthony SanFilippo. This is Phillies Stoplight for April 18th. And Anthony, the Phillies split with the Giants, and all things considered, that's not a terrible outcome. But I do think one of the biggest takeaways from this series was how Aaron Nola performed in the third game. He has now had back-to-back four-walk games for the first time ever in his career. Not only that, he's had back-to-back games walking in a run. He's got a 6.65 ERA to show after the first month of the season. Should Phillies fans be panicked or at the very least a little bit worried about the start that Nola's had?
Um, I don't know how to quite answer that the right way, Tim, because I don't want to say no, you shouldn't be panicked because it's four losses in a row. First time in his career he's done that as well, and he's not looked good in the process of doing it. But I do think that there are some caveats to put to it. And the first one I want to say is you're not as reliant on Aaron Nola these days as you used to be, right? I mean, so if this happened in 2, 3 years ago, then yeah, there would be panic in the streets. But the reality of it is you have enough starting pitching depth that you can afford to let Aaron Nola figure it out here at the beginning of the season. So there shouldn't be panic. Should there be a worry that maybe he's not going to be as reliable as he's been in the past? I think that's a fair thing to worry about. But at the same time, I also know the pitcher that Aaron Nola is, and I do expect him to in fact figure it out at some point here. The one thing I look at and I say, okay, the thing that burned him so much last year and even in the first two starts this year were the home runs, right? And gives up the long ball. And in his last two starts, it's looked like he's tried to avoid giving up the long ball, and in turn has been nibbling too much, putting runners on base. And when you start walking four guys a game, the odds are those runs are going to score, right? I mean, walks usually come around to score. That's a bad thing to walk guys. So if you're walking four guys, likely at least two of them are going to come in. So I think that's been it. I think he's got to find a balance between the pitches that I'm going to give up home runs sometimes versus I don't want to give up any home runs, and now I'm going to walk a bunch of guys. So I think that's it. I think he needs to find that balance. I think he will. His velocity will get back to where it normally is. Right. I know it's down right now, but it's pretty much the same as it was in March and April a year ago. So it's just a matter of getting better control and command and finding the strike zone, and I think he'll be okay. So I wouldn't worry too much.
Yeah, the velocity part doesn't concern me as much. And it is reality. Like when it's this cold and just kind of crappy weather in the Northeast, you're not going to throw as hard as when it's August and it's 95 degrees. I get that. I agree with you on the fact that so much was made last year and then those first two starts about giving up home runs that maybe now he's tried to be a little too perfect and has ended up out of the zone more than he typically has. And I would say if you had to settle for one of those two, you'd probably rather him just give up a home run or two every start than get. And the thing is, not to excuse how he performed the first two starts, but normally when he's given up home runs in bunches, it's been solo shots. He fell victim, I think, he gave up 4 home runs over his first two starts, and 3 of them were 2-run home runs or more. So in a way, there was kind of some bad luck there that he's always said you can live with the solo home runs. The multi-run home runs are what gets you, and that is what got him the first two starts. I agree with you on the sentiment that you're not as reliant on him as you once were, but I still think it's fair for people. Everyone kind of worries when you sign one of these long-term pitcher deals that it's going to turn into what Patrick Corbin did with the Nationals. And I think people have that concern right now. And my instinct is to say Aaron Nola is going to figure this out, whether he pitches like he did in 2018 or not, I don't know, but that he's going to figure it out and be effective. But I understand in year 2 of a 7-year deal why this would be a concerning start for people. But I would also say beyond that, there's a this year component to it that as good as your rotation is, you built this team to have perhaps the best starting rotation in baseball. And if Aaron Nola is not himself, let alone if somebody else gets hurt or underperforms or whatever the case is, you are a little thin in an area that you thought, I guess, would be a strength. You're still one of the better rotations in baseball, but you were counting on this being maybe the best one in the league.
No, I hear that. I really do. And I'm not trying to diminish, the notion of, hey, there should be concern, but it is just four starts, right? Are you concerned about Zach Wheeler? Like his last two starts haven't been great starts, right? Haven't been great outcomes. Is there concern about Zach Wheeler? Of course, there's not concern about Zach Wheeler. He's maybe the best pitcher in all of baseball. So I would sit there and say to you, yeah, okay, it's a little bit concerning. If this is still how he's pitching a month from now, I'll change my tune completely and say, I'm with you, fans. Don't, yeah, you should panic now. This is not good. But let the guy kind of figure it out. Let him find it. I think he's a veteran guy who knows how to pitch in games and knows how to, use his stuff even when it's not at his best. I think he'll find it, and I think that you'll see Aaron Nola as a middle rotation guy will be just fine.
Yeah, and as much as we've joked throughout his career about the warm weather thing, I think there absolutely is something to it. And you would think to some degree by year 11, maybe he would have adjusted to that. But it's clear that Aaron Nola, throughout the course of his career, has generally pitched better when the weather's warmer. Obviously, the weather has not been warmer to start the season. So I think that's another thing that if you're looking for reasons why Aaron Nola could bounce back, perhaps that is one. Now, there's a few injury updates we want to get to. And Anthony, I was not covering the game today, but you were. And let's start with Ranger Suarez. He pitched last night in Clearwater. What's kind of the latest on him?
Yeah, he threw 54 pitches down there in Clearwater yesterday. By all accounts, it was a good outing. Gave up one run on five hits, had seven strikeouts. He's flying up to Philadelphia tomorrow. He's going to throw a bullpen on Saturday here. So the coaches and the trainers here are going to get a look at him, see how he's doing. And then the plan is, assuming everything goes well with that bullpen, Tuesday he will pitch in Lehigh Valley. So his rehab will be transitioned up to AAA, where he'll pitch in Lehigh Valley. Rob Thompson said he's going to need at least two starts there. The plan is to go 70 to 75 pitches on Tuesday, and then probably after that, a week from then, maybe or Monday, the following Monday, you're looking at probably a 90 pitch start at that point. And so then if it all lines up properly and everything goes according to plan, it looks like Ranger could be back in the Phillies rotation first weekend in May when the Arizona Diamondbacks come in here. I think it would be the Sunday game if it lines up as they have it right now. But sometime during that weekend, you would see Ranger Suarez back with the Phillies.
Yeah, and that's a big series. I mean, the Diamondbacks between Corbin Carroll, Perdomo, like they're in a loaded division. Who knows how that ultimately shakes out? But when you talk about in September, oh, are the Phillies the top wild card seed or are they the number three wild? Like series like that certainly can have an impact. So obviously, you would rather have Ranger Suarez pitch there than a majority of other pitchers in the league. So Ranger Suarez, good update on him. By all accounts, going good. Brandon Marsh, yesterday in last night's game, originally when I saw the play that happened in center field, I'm like, this is like a when it rains it pours situation. When I watched the replay, Anthony, it took a really bizarre, unpredictable bounce, and that also contributed to Brandon Marsh not being in the lineup today.
Yeah, it looked like he planted the way he tried to plant and cut back. It was almost like he hyperextended his knee a little bit. They are just saying he's day to day at the moment. Didn't play today. I would be surprised if he played tomorrow. And see how it goes. But Rob Thompson did say after the game, probably not going to be an IL stint for him. So that's good news. And fans might say, well, go ahead, good, put him on the IL. He's batting less than 100 and, hasn't had a hit in 30 some at bats. The reality of it is they don't have center field depth. And I think you'd rather have Brandon Marsh than, say, Cal Stevenson playing the left-handed side of a platoon in center field on a regular basis, who's really the only other center fielder on the 40-man roster at this point. If you look at what other options they have, there really aren't any. They're certainly not ready. I should say probably. They're certainly not ready to call up Justin Crawford just yet. I think they're going to want to give him a little bit of a run in AAA before they make that call. And then when you look at the other possibilities, I mean, you would have to add an Oscar Mercado to the 40-man roster, which means you'd have to lose somebody off the roster. That's not an ideal situation. Edmundo Sosa went in to play left field today. I think he's an in case of emergency guy for center field, but you can't count on him as a regular in the outfield in any capacity. And Max Kepler, although he's played center field in the past, hasn't played there since April of 2022. So that you're really looking at, asking a guy to do something he hasn't done in a long time at the most important defensive position on the field. So I think it makes it a good sign, even though Brandon Marsh has struggled, that he's not going to go on the IL because the Phillies, for right now, until they make a move or until Justin Crawford's ready to come up, they need Brandon Marsh.
Yeah, and Justin Crawford, beyond the fact that he's just getting his feet wet at AAA, he has an OPS under 700, right? Like it's not like
Yeah.
he's kicking down the door to come up. Maybe he's a factor in the second half of the season, but it really feels like the Phillies and Brandon Marsh is a better player than he showed to this point. But between Marsh's struggles, Johan Rojas, you kind of feel like it just hasn't panned out. You thought a few years ago maybe there's a chance he comes together as a hitter. Hasn't happened. And there's been some inexcusable defensive plays the last couple of weeks, too. So you're in a tough spot in center field. One spot where you've been really well off so far is right field, certainly offensively. Nick Castellanos had another big hit today, but then exited the game early. What's the latest on him?
Really good news on Castellanos, and actually saw him in the clubhouse afterwards as well. He had a what they called left hip flexor tightness. It happened as he was trying to leg out that double play ground ball. And then he went back out into the field the next inning. It tightened up on him, so they pulled him out of the game, immediately went into treatment. Said as soon as the treatment was over, it felt better. He was walking around the clubhouse, being his usual self. So Rob Thompson said it's very likely he's in the lineup tomorrow. I guess the only way he wouldn't be is if he wakes up tomorrow and he's real tight and stiff again. Then they would probably give him a day. But it sounds like Nick Castellanos avoided something serious, and he's going to be back in the lineup tomorrow when the Phillies open their series with Miami.
Yeah, that is big news. And you led me right in. Phillies, Miami Marlins this weekend. It's a series. The Marlins are coming off getting swept, where it wouldn't hurt to make it a 6-game losing streak for the Marlins. Game one, you're getting a matchup of certainly two of the best pitchers of the last 5 years and maybe beyond that. And neither one of them are off to great starts right now, but you're getting Sandy Alcantara, who's back from Tommy John surgery, missed all of last season, against Zach Wheeler. Game two, you get Cal Quantrill, who had a really good first half with the Rockies last year. They decided to keep him instead of trading him, and then struggled so much they, I believe, non-tendered him. And then he's going to face Taijuan Walker. And then game three, Connor Gillespie, and you're going to get Jesus Luzardo on Easter. You're getting Jesus against his former team. So I guess obviously game one sticks out, Anthony, in terms of the pitching matchup.
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, it's the one that everybody wants to see, right? If you're going to go see the Marlins, you want to see Sandy Alcantara pitch. He's really good. So I think that's a good matchup for the Phillies to get Wheeler out there against him. And then yeah, I mean there's a couple of guys after that who've struggled a little bit this year to start the season, in Quantrill and Gillespie. And you're right, Tim. This is a series that the Phillies can make some hay before they head up to New York to face the Mets next week. This is a team that you look at and maybe they're not as bad as the Colorado Rockies were when the Rockies were in here last week or a week and a half ago, but they're only the next step up from Colorado. And so this is the team that the Phillies should handle. They should win the series, at the very least, win 2 out of 3. But it's a series that really sets up well for the possibility of a sweep for the Phillies. And then you wonder what's everybody's reaction at that point. You go into the Mets series, if you're 14-8, are you still complaining about the Phillies at that point? I think fans will complain about the Phillies
Yeah.
no matter what their record is, doesn't matter. But I really do think this is an opportunity for them to kind of get going in a positive direction again.
I'm excited to see Sandy Alcantara pitch. Like since Roy Halladay, probably, like Sandy Alcantara to me is like the closest pitcher I've seen in terms of being a horse. He had 6 complete games in 2022, and that probably ultimately contributed to him needing Tommy John surgery. And they probably pushed it a little too much because he's a guy that throws high 90s, and they had him pitch 230 innings. But I've always loved watching him pitch. When I started covering the team, like you had Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, you had all these great pitchers in the NL East. A lot of them have departed or aged out, whatever the case is. Alcantara, at least for now, is still in the NL East. May very well not be in a few months. But I'm excited for that pitching matchup, game one. And you talked about level of concern with Zach Wheeler. Mine is at less than 0 right now. I have no concerns about Zach Wheeler, but it should be a great first matchup. Marlins, obviously, one of the more nondescript rosters in MLB history right now. So the Phillies, if there's a weekend to get back on track and have a good feeling heading into a big series with the Mets, this is it. That's going to do it for this episode of Phillies Stoplight. I'm Tim Kelly. He's Anthony SanFilippo. Check out everything on Pattison.com, and we will talk to you guys next time.